Hi, my name is Azariah at Rockstar Hilton, and I would like to comment on this because someone else has just commented on my account talking about something about this, so I wanted to address it. I honestly believe that gay is the new black because of the struggle is a similar struggle. It's not the exact same struggle because there are so many different variations to the specific struggle in the gay community, but they share a common bond, which is social acceptance and social recognition, um, and the desire to be who they are without having to modify their identity in order to be accepted. A lot of African Americans don't realize a lot of behavior and social and physical modifications that we have made in order to be socially acceptable, in order to get better jobs, in order to be more socially acceptable in music, art, and media. Like most people, unlike me, get their hair braided. I got my hair braided, but not for the reason for social acceptance. I did it because I'm an artist. I like to look different. I like to change my look up. I like to change my swag because it makes me feel good about myself. But secondly, a lot of people like they'll straighten their hair because it looks more quote unquote white. And I'm not saying everybody that straightens their hair does it to be white, but in the 70s, the 50s, 60s, 70s, even back into the early 30s, blacks would straighten their hair to have the quote unquote good looking hair so that they could get better jobs and look more socially acceptable in the city and other places. So that's where it first started, was in order to be more looking like the ethnic majority here in this country. They would modify their hair. I even came to changing the clothing. People would change their clothing style to appeal to the white audience. And I'm not saying anything bad against whites. I'm just saying these are the behavior modifications that we made in order to be accepted in their communities, in order to get better jobs, and to seem like we weren't heathens, or that we know how to act or behave. And cut off the dreads, stop braiding hair, or braid hair to keep it under control, wigs, etc., etc. The things that we would do, weave, straighten it to be longer. Things we would modify by ourselves. And the same struggle can be found in the gay community. If men or femme or women are too butch, they will try to act in a different manner in order to be socially acceptable. And it's kind of ridiculous, to be honest. The struggle is like they want to be accepted. Regardless of your religious beliefs, it is not fair for you to say just because you believe a certain way that everybody else in society is forced to submit to your theological understanding and your theological outlook on life. I personally, believe in God myself. I do identify, with Jesus Christ as my Savior, but I don't identify with as a Christian because Christianity is just a hot mess, and I'm not trying to touch on that. I'm not trying to identify with that community, that faith community. On the other hand, it's like you have a right to live your life. You have a right to be yourself. You have a right to be creative. You have a right to express your sexuality. You have a right to express your beliefs. And you have a right to be the unique individual that you are. And for anybody to tell you that it is not okay because it goes against their religion is absolutely ludicrous to a certain extent. I believe in respecting people. I believe in respecting their differences. But when it comes to the point where you're telling me I can't do me or be me because it is offensive to you, well then we're going to have a little conversation, because I'm not going to change myself in order to appease you. And I don't think it's right that gays should have to change themselves or change their sexuality or change their gender expression, in order to be socially acceptable. That's ridiculous. The struggle is still the same. They want to be accepted. They want jobs. They want to live their life. They want to be happy. They want to live lives with their partners, and they can't do that legally because they can't get married. It's ridiculous. It's like they did the similar things to blacks. They outlawed weed only because they were afraid that black men were going to steal white women. If you don't know that, look at your history books back in the 1930s. That's why weed is illegal. because they said these white men, these black men with their jazz music and their liquor and their weed are seducing white women. So they outlawed weed because they got tired of black men sleeping with white women, and that's the way it's been. This is nothing. It's nothing more than a political move. It's all based in someone else's opinion, theology, and expectations online. It's not real, and I think people should. Just get over it. Just real. I have a right to live my life. I have the right to believe, think, and live my life the way I see fit. And if that happens to clash against your idea of what is socially acceptable, deal with it. You know, if I want to be a black man with dreads, I'm going to be a black man with dreads. If I want to be a black man with braids, I'm going to be a black man with braids. If I want to dye my hair blonde, I'm going to dye my hair blonde. You know, you're going to have to face that. You're going to have to deal with the reality of who I am as a person, instead of judging me based on my color of my skin or judging me based on my, my sexual orientation. You're going to have to identify with me as a person and see me for me. You know, that's the only way you're going to judge my character and get to know who I am. You know, and just because a person's sexuality is not the same as yours does not mean that their character's fault. There was this big teaching that came out of the 50s, 60s, 70s that gay people were immoral, and that was based on something the Christians identified with in their Bible in Corinthians or Romans, which was not true. Not in the sense that their immorality was not used in the same context as it is now. I'm saying that just because a person is gay does not mean that they are heathens. A person could be gay, be straight, be bisexual, transgendered, intersex, black, white, whatever, and be wild as hell. That depends on the person's character. It has to do with that person's sense of self-worth. It has to do with that person's, values and ethics. And I think we have a serious issue at hand when we look at somebody and base their character on their sexual orientation. And I know this is all based out of mindsets that have come out of previous generations. And I think us as a younger generation have to learn to break away from old mindsets and start thinking for ourselves and challenging our older generation folk to why they think what they think, why they believe what they believe. Because if we look back into it, you will find a lot of these older generations are just living off the words, are really just looking after old things that came out of religion, that came out of their pastors' teachings, that came out of their parents' bigoted mindsets, or their parents' insecurities and fears. And a lot of times you will also find that these are issues that are put in somebody else's heart because they are insecure, they are fearful because that's something that's inside of them. So I didn't attack this the way I wanted to attack it. I'm just sharing my perspective, my understanding, my knowledge based on what I've learned and what I've seen and what I've experienced. But if you look at the struggle in the gay community, trying to find social acceptance, trying to live their lives, trying to be themselves, trying to move forward, to live life and to find love, true love, and to live out of love, you will see that similar struggle in the black community, trying to find social acceptance, trying to live, trying to love, trying to live life, trying to make money, and moving forward. And still trying to break those chains of oppression off, where the majority of modern society still sees them and believes them to be something that they are not. Gays are viewed as, wild heathens, and so are blacks. We have a lot in common. And I happen to be and identify as a bisexual black man, so unfortunately I get to deal with both burdens at once. But you know what? I'm not really worried about it. I'm going to do me. I'm going to face this life and live it like I've been doing it. And I'm not going to change my swagger in order to be more socially acceptable. I just modify myself when I'm in certain communities because I recognize the threat is still real, that if I go into a certain place dressed or act in a certain way, that things will go down a way that may not be what I want. So, this is me, Azariah Rockstar Hilton, sharing my opinion. Love you all. Peace.